Kia ora koutou, good evening, welcome to you all. It's lovely to see you all here tonight. My name's Esther, I'm from Script to Screen, and we're absolutely delighted, along with Women in Film and Television, to be here this evening with Piv Bernth, who has come from Denmark. She's here for WIFT's co-production summit, and well, we're in very good company with her here. So, I know most of you will know what she's done, and that's why you're here tonight. In fact, probably all of you. But starting directing screen and theatre, she started working for the Danish Broadcaster DR in '98, and she was producing there, and she was responsible for Nicolaj and Julie, Emmy Award winning, and The Killing, which I know that most of us here have seen. Such remarkable television. She also EP'd Bridge, her time producing, and then in 2012 became head of drama at the broadcaster, where she's greenlit Borgen and The Legacy. So we're just so thrilled to have you here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
And this is Jill Macnab, who runs Vendetta, a distribution company, and is on the WIFT board. She's also producing, and her film Born to Dance is in the cinemas at the moment still. So if you haven't seen it yet, please do get out and see it.
Yeah.
So we're going to play a little something to get started, and then I'm going to hand over to Jill. Thank you all very much.
We'll take on the lights. So.
Lights, camera, action.
This is charming light.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Ooh, that's bright.
Yeah.
So some absolutely incredible shows there, and I think a lot of us will have seen a lot of those series. One of the things that you have talked about when you've been talking about the success of Danish shows is that you try and keep the creatives as far away from the organisation as possible. So can you talk a little bit about that process, how it works for you and why?
First of all, I'd say thank you for having me here. It's a great honor to be here. It's been one of my dreams to come to New Zealand, and so far I'm so excited I really could stay. It's beautiful here, so thank you very much for that. Well, I think that the creative process is so important that you really have to take good care of it and protect it so much as you can. And that's one of the things that we really emphasize when we're working on our projects, because I don't think that executives are innovative in any way. Because we had many years ago in 2001 we had a very successful local series called Unit 1 in English, Unit 1, and still when we repeat it, it has a lot of viewers, and I'm totally sure that if the executives at DR should decide, we would now do episode 425 of that series. We would never be allowed to do anything else, because they only want what they know. So to be courageous and inventive, you have to do things that they really didn't know they wanted, and that's an important thing. So that's why you have to keep them away until you have a project so far developed that they can see what this is going to be. So that's one of my fine things as head of drama. After being a producer at DR for many years, that's what I felt, having the confidence from the executives that you will do it, and not getting them involved at all. And now, it's changed. I became head of drama. Some of the older producers, they left. So I have a total new stock now of producers, and that's the thing, because now they start to shake their hands again, oh, what's going on here and what's happening, and so until they sort of have proved themselves, until then you really have to keep them away from the executive, away from DR, because DR is a wonderful organization with so many muscles to do anything. But once the wrong person comes across at the wrong time, it can really damage the thing. So that's when we are working, we are spending a lot of money on the developing process before we greenlight. we have a project we think are very interesting, and then we start working on the development process, and then they work for maybe 3, 4, 5 months, because having 3 writers working in a room, you know, developing the concept, the whole idea, the characters, is a cheap money. As soon as we greenlight and start writing scripts and start getting a director, start getting a production design and all that, it becomes very expensive because the money keeps rolling out. So you know, we spend a lot of time, and sometimes we postpone the day where we present it and have it greenlight, but we never go and present anything that we don't trust and we don't believe in.
So where do you get your development money from?
We invest them, but we get them back when we get the green light. So you know, they go into the production budget, all over production budget.
So
So
DR
we lend
is,
the money to the production, you could say that.
and DR is a publicly funded broadcaster, so everyone in Denmark pays a license fee.
Yeah.
So it's
And
not
that-
being funded by TVNZ.
Yeah, or well, the BBC more likely.
Like the BBC.
Sorry, TVNZ.
We are public service broadcaster, just like the BBC.
Yeah. So it's coming from taxpayers' money and and a license fee.
Yeah.
And I've read about the writers' room process. You were part of a group of Danish producers in the 90s who went to the States and went into LA writers' rooms and shows and saw how that worked, and then took that process back to Denmark. So can you talk about how that happened, what you learned, and what's, I guess, changed for the Danish model?
The thing was that before like 94 or something, we made a lot of really bad TV series. Seriously bad. You know, we couldn't even get a Danish audience to watch them. And then we had a new head of drama called Rumle Hammerik. He was a film director, and he said, "This is a visual media. You know, this is not sort of theater that you film or so. You know, he was really, we're going to do something about this." And he started, you know, this kind of was merging between the film business and the TV business in Denmark. You know, the production crews came from the feature films he's made before. He took these production, the DOPs, the production designers, props, anybody, you know, makeup. All he said, you know, we have got to get these people in because they know. All these TV series people, they don't. The TV production crews, they don't know it. You know, they've been. If they do the news one day, or they do sports the other day, and they do drama another day, they don't care. You know, it's just the same job. So he really wanted to professionalize it. And then he went off to the US to see what they were doing, because it went pretty well over there. It was a time when we all saw NYPD Blues and things like that. You know, that was very inspiring. And you know, with handheld cameras and a lot of people talking on each other, you know, and you know, sort of cutting each other off, and you know, no respect for the line and for the way that they moved and all that sort of stiff stuff. We did, at least at that point. And then we started, you know, looking at this and saying, can we do that? No, we cannot do that because the Danish audience would be, you know, shocked. And then he started developing. He was, you know, in charge of developing the first series, which were a very modern series. Today, when we see it, it's from '97, and when we see it today, it's really old-fashioned and old school. But it was amazing at that time, and then it worked. He worked with another producer than me, and then we sort of said, now we are really going to do something like this. And then we went once at a time. One at a time. We went to the US, and went into this writers' room and met executives, met writers, and met creators and directors, and they all talked about, you know, how they worked, and we brought it back. And then, you know, we realized that we couldn't be, if we would have the good directors, we can't work like they do in the US. Well, it's only the executive producers and the writers who are in charge of everything and in control of everything. They have the final decision on anything. But we can get the good directors into our productions if we do that. So we have made a more soft sort of way. We still have one vision, which is very important, that the writer's one vision is the one and only. You know, that's what everyone has to sort of say yes to. When they go into a production at a certain series, they have to sort of say yes to this sort of vision that the writer is having on the show, and they're going to do their best to fulfill it. But to get a director in there, you know, you really have to give them some space, and you have to give them some creative freedom. So they have an enormous impact on the scripts, and they have a big impact on the casting of the, you know, the sort of the all the actors and the parts that go through the whole series. They have a big impact. The visuality, they can choose a DOP. They can choose the production designer together with the writer, of course, and the producer. You know, that team should be a triangle that works really well. But then again, you know, they leave after 2 episodes. The first director leaves the show, and there will be a new one coming in, and the producer and the director will still be the ones that goes all the way through. And that's an important thing to remember, because when you have these discussions, which we have a lot of discussions and fights between the director and the writer, the head writer, the creator. And in the end, as a producer, when you go in that room and they need the decision to be made, and you very often go with the writer, and the creator, the director goes bananas. But then, you know, you just have to say, but still you're leaving this project, you know, and this decision can mean something for the next 10 episodes, you know, so it's so important that, you know, he gets it the way he will, and that's the one vision. So, did that answer the question? Yeah.
Do you think it's important to have multiple directors on a
Yeah.
long TV series?
We do have that because of the logistics. You know, when we start shooting, the second day of shooting, we start editing, and then if the director will have any impact of the editing, he has to leave after 2 episodes. And I think it would wear anyone out to do like 10 episodes. It's like, you know, 5 feature films, and you do it straight down, you die. And I think it's good for the actors as well. You know, I think it's good for the actors to get the inspiration, because we always say that the actors take the floor after 5 episodes. Then they know better everything. So, you know, you need new directors coming in and fighting this, you know, saying no, you don't, because I see this one, and then you have it refreshing. So I think it's a very good thing to do that.
And where does I guess the faith in the writers come from in the first place? I guess what I'm asking is, what are the training models like in Denmark that allow them to have that much responsibility or say in what's happening?
Well, we have sort of had this system like you start as a staff writer. We have a very, very good film school, and we have a very, very good writers line at the film school. They're really doing a very good job there, and then they have focused more and more within the last 10 years on TV series, of course, because, you know, it was obvious that a lot of writers would have jobs there. And my predecessor have taught them, and I teach there, and you know, and it's nice to have a first look of the talent, so that's really a good thing on the other. But then they come in as staff writers. For instance, the 2 staff writers from Borgen, they and Jeppe, one of them, his first show as a showrunner and creator is airing now in January, and he came from that. He worked 4 years on Borgen, and now he's sort of developed into this responsibility. He has it in him that he can sort of be in charge of. You know, the difficult thing is that you often will be boss for your friends, because all these writers, they know each other, you know, and they go and having beers on Friday, and they go to the same parties, and they've known each other for years, and suddenly one of them is the boss. And that respect, you really you have to earn that. You know, you really have to go into character and earn it, and that's a long process, you know, and that's why again we're using these 4-6 months before we greenlight, because we have to see if it works. And casting a writer's room is quite complicated, really, because if they're 2 good friends, it doesn't work often. So we have to sort of, and we spend a lot of time casting the writer's room, really. But we have that sort of getting them in to write episodes and see if they work in that way of storytelling. And so Maya, who wrote The Legacy, she did the children's series for us for a long time, and then she wrote some episodes on different series, and then suddenly she came up with this idea. I want to tell the story of my own generation, you know, as a child of the hippies. So I have an idea, and then, you know, she developed it, and it was so convincing that you just couldn't say no. And then in my department, I have radio drama as well, and that's really nice. I like radio drama a lot. and sometimes, you can try out writers in the radio drama, because that's not so expensive, it's not so hyped as a TV drama is. And then, the producer who is in charge of the radio drama comes to me and says, you should look at him or her because they're really good. So then I listen to it, and actually one of a beautiful children's series we just did is written by two writers who wrote for the radio. A really bad show. It was really bad. But then we talked to them and said, "Well," and they didn't work. But we have this idea. We didn't really want to do that because we have this idea. And then I've done this wonderful children's series for TV. So they will eventually grow within the years and do different series and episodes. And then suddenly they will come up with an idea. And that's how we do it.
Yeah. And there's so much success of these shows that have come out in the last few years, 10 years or so. But you're working on very modest budgets in comparison to international shows. So how do you do that differently? Are there different types of fees? How are people actually engaged, employed, back-end deals, things like that? And is there profit coming back from these shows to then put into future ones?
Well, I think we pay them extremely high wages, I must say. but I think we have a very efficient way of working, really, because we do two episodes in what we call a block of 2 episodes, and we move on, and we commission 20 episodes at 2 seasons at once. So, and that's really to save money. Because you don't have a second development period, which is very expensive, and we are quite efficient. We work 10 hours a day, and each episode has between 13 and 15 days of shooting, and we edit for 6 weeks, and we have sound editing for 4 weeks. So it's quite efficient, and this logistics, they mean that everything is going on at the same time, and we are writing and shooting at the same time, which is sort of too exciting sometimes, but it works quite well because it's.
Do you ever not make it?
Sorry?
Do you ever not hit deadline?
Oh God, no! We have to air at a certain date. We have a premiere date, so there's no way. Yeah. There's no way of saying we can't do it. There's no way. So we just work, and sometimes it's crazy, but we do it works. But we can adjust the scripts and the characters and everything, because we can take the writers into the editing room and say, look, this works so good, this is a good character, we need him more into it. Or we can say, look at him, it's really bad, so we got to get him out. So that's really a funny story. Is actually when we did the first season of The Killing, the partner of Sarah Lund, we had planned that he should die at the end of the first season in episode 10, because she should really have challenges, and we would make hell for her. So she should go through the second season without a partner. But then after 5 episodes, we looked at it and we said, "Wow, they are really good together, these two. It's such an amazing couple. They created, we created. So So we decided to let him live for another 8 episodes. And that was something. But then I talked to the actor, because I only had contracted him for 10 episodes, and he was like, "That's gonna cost you." So so he got a good deal, and then we killed him in episode 18. And that was really, you can make your way into the series as well. So and some you kill off. It's a very living, and always the organism is always on the move, and that's very nice, and that's very exciting, and too exciting sometimes. But that's the way it works, and everybody says, "Can't we get the script ahead and all that?" But I don't know, somehow it never happens. And I was told that Francis Ford Coppola says that a script is like a newspaper; you get a new one every day. So it's and it went well for him. So I think that's
and for you.
Yeah, and for us. Yeah. So that's why we can do it. It's not. But we don't have the budgets, and we have 60% finance from the start, because we are a public service broadcaster. We have 4 years deals with the government, So the sort of the amount that I have from the start will finance 60% of what they want us to do, and then we have to get the rest from the Nordvision, from co-production partners, from selling the series abroad, and then when we get some income, which is little more than we have to spend in the actual budget, we spend them on new projects, you know, and other things, develop new stuff, and you know, trying to be inventive and courageous and do things. So, but we never ever, you know, get all the money back. It's never happened. Even though, you know, Borgen and The Killing are going very well around the world, it never happens that we get the money back. We are bad business in that. So I must say.
Wow. So in terms of selling around the world, obviously the shows have been massively successful in so many countries. I think BBC 4 was one of the first to pick up The Killing, and then went crazy from there. Why do you think these shows are so successful in so many other countries?
I think that the characters are very complex, and I think that the themes and the topics that we choose are complex and surprising, really. Because when we did The Killing, a long time ago now, it was the first time ever you did a crime with one crime story in 20 episodes. Now everybody does it, you know, that's fine. But we were the first ones to do it, and when we announced it, everybody said, "You're crazy, it's not going to happen, you know, the audience are not going to sit down for 20 hours and wait for the killer, you know, it's not going to work." And we said, well, let's try it, and I must say that the executives at that time at DR was sort of, we just won this international Emmy for Nikolaj and Julie, Søren Sveistrup, who wrote The Killing, and Nikolaj and Julie, and Sophie Grobel, who's the lead in both shows, and we just had this prize, and they were sort of quite confident that we could do things. So they said, you know, try it, see it, but if it doesn't work, you have to change it immediately. So that's why, you know, this riding along while we're shooting it, and we realized it worked. And when it came out in Denmark, we were really surprised, because it took people totally, you know, they were discussing who's the killer, and we didn't have a strategy for what are we going to say, and what are we how we're handling this. We thought they were just hanging on, you know, but they became obsessed, and with this jumper, you know, and it was really we didn't know, you know, what happens here. We were sort of very surprised, and the same thing with Borgen, you know. If you had asked at that time, you know, the Danes, do you want to see a TV series about Danish politics? They would have said no way. We hate politicians, you know, and we got so fed up with them, they lie all the time. But you know, when Adam just got the grip of it and told the story about, you know, a person, it's all about relations, you know, it's all about emotions, and his tagline were like, you have, as a person, as a, you know, career person and a private person, you always have to choose between what you love and who you love. And that dilemma is so universal for everyone, and that's one of the reasons why I think Borgen has really made it. It's not about Danish politics, it's about politics, and it's about having a special career. And then the setting of the parliament in Denmark was really exotic. And he came upon it because he was standing on a treadmill in a fitness center, watching the telly next to a big guy who was just, you know, pacing on this treadmill. And then they announced on the television that there was going to be an election, and that was the news. And this guy next to him said, "Oh no, I'm not gonna take it, man." And Adam was with the gun, "No, I'm not gonna do it." Okay. And then, you know, Adam thought, we're gonna do something about people that has to vote and the democracy, and so we had to go inside the democracy and see how it works. And that's how Borgen came on. And you know, it's often that you get these side, and when you get these sort of complex characters and sort of special topics, I think it's and profound storytelling, high class storytelling, you know. And that's the thing we have another thing, which is apart from this one vision, we have the thing that we talk about, which is we call it the public service layer, which means that we have to tell more than one story. We have to tell two stories at a time. We have to tell the actual story, you know, who killed Nana Birk Larsen, but we have to tell a story about the Danish society at the same time, you know, or, you know, sort of universal topics. And I think that if you write about what you know, your own sort of situation, your own cultural backyard, then you can tell profound stories because you really know what you're talking about, and you can keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the sort of scenes and the topics and the characters, and you can keep turning them and give them twists, because when you know, you feel you're on somehow safe ground. So that's one of the reasons why, and that's one of the things, you know, we really have to focus on now, because the enormous focus from outside can confuse people, you know, because they think they have to look somewhere over there or somewhere over there, and we try to keep your blinders on and focus and write what you know, because that's the thing. Be Nordic, be Danish, be so Danish you can. Don't think about, you know, oh, but if I do this, you know, the British might like it, or, you know, they might like it in America and all that. Forget it, you know, be who you are. And then I had a Q&A in Denmark. Australians were actually visiting Denmark last week, and we had a Q&A with them. Jeppe was writing the new series called Follow the Money. We showed them one episode, and then we had a Q&A after that. And he said, I was standing next to him, that might be why, but he said, no, I'm not focusing on the international impact of this series. I'm only focusing on the Danish audience. And that's a good boy. but he might have only said it because I was there. But you know, that we're really trying to say that, because I think we will lose it if we try to focus on something else.
Yeah. So the cultural specificity actually makes for...
Yeah. That makes a difference. Yeah.
Okay. There's been a lot talked about the female leads in these shows, and that the majority are women. So was that a conscious decision, or where did that actually come from, and is that changing?
Well, it was not a decision made, you know, at a higher level. It was when we did The Killing. Søren Svejstrup was the creator of it. He said, it's so interesting to take women down dark lanes, have them going around in dark areas, you know, and in dark corners, and being in a social sort of surrounding that is quite dangerous for women to be. So he thought that was very nice. And even Sophie, who was used to play parts like a smiling, empathic, emotional, wonderful woman, we took all that away from her and made her, you know, not smiling. That was one of the darkness for The Killing. Sophie can never smile, and the sun must never shine. So that was two sort of dark and that was just the opposite of what she was doing. So you know, that's what was the question?
The female lead.
Yeah, female lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we chose her to do that, because she was so well known in Denmark for the totally opposite. And from Borgen, it was really because at that point, when we started producing Borgen, someone said, I don't know who said in the newspaper, Denmark is not ready for a woman prime minister, and that's so provocative. And that was in 2007, I think. That is so provocative. So Adam really felt like it's got to be a female prime minister. It's gonna be a female prime minister, because it's really provocative to say things like that, I think. And but then again, you know, we in the legacy we have both male and female leads, and then we actually discussed, now we have to change it. We have to sort of have a male lead for a period, because we had to check out what happened to the men while we were so focusing on the women. So that's the Follow the Money, which will be airing now, that's two male leads actually, and then a very young, totally out of drama school young actress as a female lead, and she's excellent. She's doing a good job, and she's really taking the focus from the guys, so that's nice. But it's not a decision; it just happens, you know, that they and I like the fact that male writers like to write women characters. You know, that's really nice. That they really, you know, want to investigate what's happening to women when they're exposed to this and that and this and that. So that's really nice. And you know, having in Denmark just now, we, as in all countries, I think, when actresses crosses the line of 40, 45, you know, there's less and less spots for them to play, and that's a problem. And just now there is a sort of a wave in Denmark that these actresses, they are, you know, really taking the fight, because they sit down, they take courses in writing, and they write their own shows and parts for themselves. And just now I have 3 different, or 4, 2 of them are writing together, but 3 productions in development that are female actresses who are writing their own shows. One is a children's show, one is a family show about, you know, 3 couples having this monthly dinner with their kids together, and you know how it develops. And the other one is a really satirical half-hour show about 2 women, you know, being really telling secrets about women that we only tell each other, you know, when we are very close friends and we're sitting in a party and having some wine. They're sort of exposing all those secrets, so that's really nice. I like that. And the one with the 2 women, when the first season went on this summer, and it was a tremendous success and such a relief for a lot of women, you know. Oh, we can be imperfect. That's really nice, you know. Say more about that, so we don't have to be this perfect women, you know. And we don't have to be perfect mother and mistress and all kind, you know, colleague and all. That's really great. And the other one is about the dinner club is airing in November, by the end of November, and the children's show will be on in the spring. So it's really, you know, they're moving into different things, and it's really nice that they fight it instead of sort of being bitter and waiting for someone to do something for them. That's really nice. So that's a new sort of wave started, and I'm looking forward to see if what will come out of it in the end in a couple of years or so.
So, what else is the future? Obviously, everyone else is following you guys now in terms of looking at Denmark for how to create their shows and things like True Detective and Homeland and shows have come out of great shows.
Great shows.
By following these models of darker, more complex stories. So, do you think the tide will turn again?
But we are turning a bit now, because we haven't done it apart from The Bridge, which is a co-production between Sweden and Denmark. We haven't really done a crime show for a while, and we haven't got a crime show in the pipeline just now, because we're trying to sort of go the other way now, because everybody's doing crime shows now, and the Americans are doing millions just now. It's said that there are 4 years ago there was 250 TV series in the US. This year there will be 400, and next year there will be 500. So that doesn't make sense, you know. It's going up and up and up, and everybody will do TV series now, but it has to go down, you know. Just like sort of with the financial crisis, you know, everybody it's money, and then suddenly it all breaks down. And I think it will be like that. Of course, there will be a lot of TV shows still, but this increasing amount is ridiculous to my mind. And the Americans are doing so many crime shows, so you can't tell the difference anymore. And so we're going in another direction. We're doing more sort of human drama, because Follow the Money is a sort of crime show, but it's not a crime show. It's about the economical crisis and the greed that it pushed forward in everyone, and it's another take of a crime, because you actually know who the perpetrator is. But you know, it's a different show. And then we're doing more sort of family drama shows and complex topics. We are developing a show just now about faith and religion, and how we cope with it, and how we deal with it. It's a story about 2 brothers and their father, a family of priests, and it ends up like a sort of Cain and Abel story. And we're developing a show about Denmark as a multicultural society, you know, how do we deal with that? And we have this enormous migration in Europe just now from Syria and the Middle East and Africa, and we have to deal with it. And it's we've been as I told Jill earlier, that we had an election in June, and the 2 candidates for Prime Minister were in a TV debate, and they had the question, is Denmark a multicultural society? And after a court sort of hesitation, they both said no. And you know, everybody said, what? You know, it's not my everyday life, you know, when I look around. And I said, we're going to do a show about that. That's definitely, we're going to deal with it, we're going to talk about it, we're going to discuss it. So that's what we are dealing with now. So that's things to come, and we have the third season of The Legacy coming up. We start shooting in January, and a season more of The Bridge, fourth and final season of The Bridge coming up. So we are trying to do, not crime shows anymore. And Søren Sveistrup, who did The Killing, he is working on, with a long perspective, but working on we have a certain thing with around the Second World War with rescuing the Jews from the Nazis. At a certain point in 1943, the police was taken by the German, and they wanted to sort of get rid of all the Jews and send them to Germany. And within 10 days, 7,000 Jews were taken out of Denmark to Sweden by the Danish population without any sort of organization or coordination or anything. It just happened. And that's an amazing thing. It's an amazing story. And then a very few went to Germany, but I think 7,000 or 8,000 Jews were taken to Sweden, which were neutral and not a part of the Second World War. So, and that's a story we're working on, and it's a really complex, big thing, and it's national, goal. So you have to really be careful about it. But it's Søren who's writing it, and Susanne Bier, who's a famous Danish director, she's directing it. So that's what we are having, coming up for the next, and then other things, half-hour shows, but the big things, that's what's in the pipeline now.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, how many hours of original television drama do you screen every week?
Only one.
1 hour?
1 hour, of a big.
No, in total.
No, in total.
Yes. How much original television drama turns up?
A year, 20 hours a year, and then we have another 15 hours of half-hour shows. So that's what we do. We have 10 1 hour, 2 times 10 1 hour, and then 15 hours of half-hour shows. And then we have the radio stuff, and then sort of little things in between. So we have a lot of things, going on all the time.
And you mentioned The Bridge, co-production with Sweden.
Yeah.
So are you looking to do more co-productions, and what are the biggest difficulties you found with that?
Well, the difficulties is always, deciding who's at the end of the table, and you have to decide that before you start, because it's going to be decided in peacetime, when everybody says, yeah, it's going to work, it's going to be fine, So you have to decide that then. It has been quite a good relation with the Swedish co-production partners. At the first season we had a lot of discussions, really many discussions. But at the second season and of the third season it's been really better, and I think that's why the third season is the best season, because we are much more aligned now, and that's nice. But the thing is, I think that if you have more than 2 co-production partners, it's going to be complicated, because the important thing when you do a co-production is to remember what you fell in love with in the first place. That was the script, the idea, the writer, the something. And then when you start producing and shooting and editing, you start fighting, and you're fighting to get your fingerprint in it. But you sometimes forget, about all of the concept and the series. And that's the thing. That is really sort of a human thing, which is really hard to control. So that's, we were as a minor co-production partner in a European series called The Team. I think there was 7 co-production partners, and I read the scripts and we liked it, and we went in with this very little money compared to the whole budget. And because we have this track record, they want us to go into the editing room as well and comment on it, and that was just impossible, because there were so many people screaming and shouting and pulling it this way or that way or this way or that way. So it ended up being not a very good production. It's because you can see it. You can see all the sort of disagreements, and you can see all the compromises. It was just so many compromises. So, and that is, I think that's a challenge about co-production. It really needs respect for the project first of all, and no one's bigger than the project. That's the thing, actually. That's an important thing always. And try to put away your ego, which is complicate for us all, you know, because I think I have the right idea. It's mine, you know. But really try to say, you know, I always say when I give notes to scripts or to screenings or anything, I always say don't do what I say, but listen to what I say, because you know then they have to interpret it and say if she's not like if she doesn't like this scene. It could be because that scene is wrong. It's not that scene. You know, it's always, you know, going down and find the place where it starts. And you know, seeing one screening you can't remember, you know, when you start there, I don't like it there, you know, that's for the creators to sort of decide. And so that's I think that's one of the key things, you know, really to remember there's no one is bigger than the project, the series. And don't think that you can scream your way through it.
And we have a lot of writer-directors here who do both, particularly in film, I guess by facet of the small population or whatever it may be. What are your thoughts on that? It sounds as if you really keep the writers and directors very separate.
Yeah, and we do definitely. There has been a tendency that some actors would like to try to direct. Because they've been in the show for a long time, they want to direct it. And Trine Dyrholm, who's the lead, the eldest sister in The Legacy, she has now got one episode in the third season that she's going to direct. And it was a long fight because I said no. And the producer said, yeah, let her do it. And I said, no. Because, you know, the reputation, because the one who plays the father with the long hair, the hippie father, he directed 3 episodes. And that was his conditions to go into it at all. And we really wanted him, so we said, yeah, okay, do it. And I've known him for many, many years, and I directed him in the theatre many years ago. And he said to me when I was like, no, it doesn't work, Jesper, because, you know, actors are not going to be directors. You know, we gotta have directors. And then he said, you said to me many years ago that I should direct. I think, you know, that's not true. But anyway, I said, did I really? Yeah. But then he did, and it worked fine. And then Trini, you know, she was a little keen on it, and then I said no, because we can't have the reputation that we're taking, you know, our own actors to do directing. You know, that's really a bad reputation for the directors. So, but then in the end, I had to give up and give in, and now she's doing it. And but I really like, you know, the skills that you are really getting, and the experience you have, and the look at it you have to be with the ones who's going to have it, and not because, you know, now they have to write. It's episode 5 she's directing. You know, they have now to write her down in that, because she can't be that much into it, because she can't do both, because she's inexperienced. She's a very experienced actress, and she's very good, and she's been doing feature films all over the world, but it's just another thing. So I like to keep it apart, because you will get the best of it all if you keep it apart, I'm sure. Because writers, when I take a writer, every time you take a creator or writer down to the set, they're sort of, no, what are they doing to this? No, what's wrong? So you just get them out again, you know, very fast. You know, and then when they see it's okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay. But you know, it's just 2 different ways of looking at the material. So you really have to split it up, I think. But there's a lot of actors in Denmark who like to direct for the theatre, and that's bad too, I think. You know, there's only very few who are good at it, and then they keep doing it and stop acting. You know, that's better. But you know, it's very few who has the skills to do both and do it well. That's the thing, because we have high quality expectations from what we do, so we can't sort of, you know, be loose about saying that it doesn't matter. You know, she can direct it and he can do it. We can't do that, because really, again, like the focus, we have to be as intense with it as we were when we started. You know, don't forget it, and don't get sort of lazy and, you know, easygoing and, you know, just sit in your bum. That goes for itself. You know, it doesn't work. No.
Yeah. All right, I think we're going to open up to questions now.
Mm-hmm.
So you said before that you thought the idea of seeing the woman prime minister is preposterous, so you wanted a show written about it. How do you influence the writers or put a story forward that you see wanting to happen?
Excuse me, say that again. About the last part of it.
So if you see an idea like that you think deserves to be made, how do you push that forward to the writers, or is it?
But they do it themselves. You know, Adam Price, who was this guy in the fitness room, he came with this idea.
Okay.
So because we another thing which is very sort of firm in our strategy is that we never adapt books. We only do original material, and the writers in Denmark, they know that, so they come to us with the original ideas. And Adam came with this idea, and then we discussed it, and he sort of started developing it, you know, just for a couple of months, and he had sort of, it should be a female prime minister, you know, and her husband and 4 kids, and she should be from that party, I think, and all that. And then he came and presented that, and I said, that sounds good. And then the story is like, and then the first 2 seasons went very well in Denmark, really well. And then we said, could you make a 3rd season? And he said, yeah, I got an idea. And then he pitched an idea, and that was really bad. I said, no. Then forget about the 3rd season, we're not going to do it. And then 2 weeks later he came, I got a new idea. Okay, come on in. And that was a good idea, that's the one you see now. But you know, it's, and it's not automatically that just move on. So they come in with the ideas. And it's, for me, it's very, very important that the writers come in with the idea. I've said in an interview, this about the multicultural society, I'm going to do that series. And I only had the idea, how are we going to do it? And within, 2 weeks, I had a lot of suggestions for it. And some were rubbish, but some were really good. So now we have, on the move. But if nobody reacted to it, it would just say, then we have to wait. And we have to wait to have from the film school and the writer's line, we have to have people who comes from sort of another ethnic background than Danish, because Danish writers can't do it. It's not going to happen, not at all. No.
So many.
Right, when you changed the model in the late 1990s, did the audience come with you straight away? Did you have a connection, or did you have to coach them?
Yeah, no, they really liked it, because this first series called Taxi was a taxi business. It really went well, because it grabbed the audiences from a very sleeping environment in the TV series, really sleepy and very old school, and really to old people, It suddenly changed because this was a modern thing, and it got extremely good reviews in the papers and talked of. So Talk of the Town was what really made it. And I think we made 55 episodes. We just kept on doing it until we sort of said, now we got to stop. It's just got to stop. And then came in the Unit 1. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the budgets and use that you never make all the money back?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a target? Do you aim to make 80% back, or
No.
how
No.
close to get?
I actually have the privilege not to sort of pay any money back. I can't have a deficit.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So if all the income we get, we actually share with DR, the big DR, because so that's sort of a non-circle, because they give us money, they give us 60% of the project, then we get the rest, we find the rest, then we produce a series, then we sell it, and then the income, they get half of the income, and then we give it back, when we get the next year. So it's like we call it Danish rubles, because it's like no money, but it's money.
And where does the remaining 40% come from?
It comes from Nordvision, because DR is a part of a Nordic broadcasters conclave something, and they pay every year to this to subsidize all kind of programs, and fiction, because it's so hot just now, gets a lot of them. And then we get the co-production, often from France or Germany, and then we put a little money in it ourselves from the income we get. So it's sort of way the way we do it. So we don't focus so much on the money in that respect. When we got, and then we get an MG often from a distributor. We get an MG, which makes it possible. When we have the budget in place, we don't discuss money that much. really, and that's really an advantage for us. And we can plan 4 years ahead, which is really something, you know, because I can say now to a guy who's going to air his show in 1919, let's start. You know, that's an amazing thing, and I can get, you know, the good people, and so because they know they will, you know, we don't go bankrupt, you know, anything, you know. It's and we have so much of the budget in place from the start, so you can get started, you know. So that's the thing.
You had a question over here?
Yeah. Can you describe your script development process from identifying a new idea and going, yes, that sounds interesting, through to the beginning of production? Like, who is involved and about how long each stage takes?
Yeah. The first sort of month or two it will be the creator himself talking to me, and a bit to the producer as well, who's going to produce it. And then they start developing, the producer and the writer starts discussing who's going to write this with us. And then we get one writer in maybe and try that out, and then we get one more. And it's not about talent, it's about chemistry. Because if you have to walk in the same room 7 days a week, 4 years ahead, you've gotta like each other, you know, that's important. So often you can get a very wonderful, talented writer in this room, and it's not going to work at all because he doesn't or she doesn't like the theme or, you know, the genre or something. You know, it's when we did The Killing, one of the writers who were on from the start, after episode 5, he left it. He said, "I'm not going to do this anymore," because when we got rid of the high school kids and moved into another plot, he was sort of, this was what I thought was interesting, and I would like this to move on, and if you don't do that, I'm off. So he went off. So that's how you can do it. So you get one writer and two writers, and if it works, they just keep developing the storylines, the overall arch, the storylines for each episode, more or less, you know, in really broad terms, you know. And then they start, and they go around maybe for 4 months, you know, together, 4-6 months. And I read, sorry. I read all the stuff they come out with, you know, and discuss it with them and have meetings with them, because sometimes it tends to, the idea will move in a different direction. It will change into something which, where are you going here, because this is not really interesting, and you have to keep to the plot we discussed, and so the concept we liked from the beginning. And they write and rewrite, and then they write this concept paper, which will be around, you know, 25-30 pages, with the characters, the storylines, the overall arch, the double meaning of it. You know, it's not only about this; it's about that as well. And then, you know, you approach a director and sort of get a director to say, yeah, that sounds interesting. I might like to do that. And then we go to the big DR and say, we have got this wonderful package for you. And it's amazing. And they always say, yes, it's amazing. and then we just move on. And from then on, you know, they start writing storylines, and they plot it out, treatments, and then they start, you know, sort of casting, the first casting, and then they keep writing, and then they write up to episode 4, and then they go back and start writing from the top again, episode 1, episode 2, and then it moves, and then we often go back and rewrite episode 1 like 10 times. You know, it's the worst episode of all. That's the first. That's really crazy, right? And we are there now with the series about faith and religion. I think the first 5 episodes are written now, but we keep struggling with episode 2 just now. And then when that's in place, we have to go back to 1, because, you know, things happen. And then when they start writing scripts, there will be like 12 months until they should start shooting. And then they keep writing, and then you know all the casting and all this. And then you have suddenly, you realize, if we can get this actor, he's wonderful or she's wonderful, we're gonna rewrite a lot of it, because now she's suddenly, you know, 10 years older or younger or whatever, you know, because suddenly you see new possibilities, and then you lose time, you know, and then you have to be in a hurry. So that's, but it's always, you know, we are going back and forth a lot. We are, and usually I say that 4 or 5 scripts will be ready when we start shooting, but they know what they're going to do. And with Follow the Money, which we're shooting the 2nd season now, and they just moved on into the 2nd season right away, and they're really busy now because they're really fighting. You know, the express train, the production is just behind them. You know, there's trying to get there. You know, everybody's screaming for scripts and screaming for everything. So, but that is the process more or less. You know, and you know, when we have the final script of the first 2 episodes, we give it to the executives at DR and say, this is what we're going to do. And then often they have always comments somehow, you know. And we say, oh great, oh let's have them. And then we write it down and say, thank you very much. And then we look at it and say, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. And then we move on, you know. But always do something, you know, sometimes they have a point because, you know, when you're too involved, you can't always, you know, overlook it all. So we often, you know, I think we rewrite a lot for the first 4 episodes, really, a lot. And I think another thing which is very important, if the creator and head writer who's always, you know, writing the shooting script, because it has to be the same voice in all episodes. The important thing is, again, you know, listen and wherever the best idea comes from, take it. You know, it could be a runner who passes by and say, why doesn't he? That's a good idea. Why don't we do that? You know, he's a runner, we can't use it. You know, you really have to be open to that process. And we have another thing, which is we read through with the actors, and then the main actors, you know, the ones who are going all the way through and have big parts, they can bounce on the scripts. They have meetings with the writers, one at a time, one act at a time, or if you know, in The Killing we had 3 plots, so the police plot, they had meetings, and the political plot, and you know, so and then they can bounce on it and they can say anything, and we just listen and discuss sometimes, but you know, more listen to them, and then when they left, we sort of, you know, wrapped the day and said, this is a good idea, this is what we're going to do, this we're not going to do, we can't do this is too expensive, could I say, you know, we're not going to do it, it's too expensive. And then, you know, so they had a voice as well, because, and as I said before, you know, the longer you get into the series, the more the actors know, and the more they own the show, and they steal the show from you. And so they know more, and they, you know, get involved in, you know, and you know, they can sort of help each other. What you should say that you said, you wouldn't say that. Tell him, it's a good idea, you know. So you know, they're sort of a force against us, but it works, and it's very good to give them a voice, because you know, it solves a lot of things on the set, because you have discussed it, you agreed on it, and then then we read the final script before we start shooting, so we can take some of the problems so we don't, you know, when we have the whole crew standing there waiting for. They're discussing now again, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours. And it's too expensive to have all these people standing there waiting and listening to sort of disagreement between the actors and the directors. So that's why we try to take it there when you know, it's cheap. That might be why it's not so expensive, because we try to really use the expensive time, the shooting period for shooting. Yeah.
I think we've got time for one last.
How many programs would you normally have on the development slate at any one time?
Just now we have 4 half-hour shows, and we have 3 one-hour shows, and as new ones. And then we have the Legacy, 3rd season of the Legacy, and we have the Bridge, 4th season of the Bridge, and 2nd season of Follow the Money. So you know, there's a lot of things all the time. And then we have we have a thing in Denmark. Every Christmas we broadcast 24 days from the 1st of December, half an hour for the family. And the other big TV station in Denmark, TV2 Denmark, and DR, we do a new one every other year. They do this year, we do next year, and we just started shooting the one for next year. And so that is just finished development and pre-production, and they start shooting in a week. So So that's
So
good.
besides you, how many people in your team?
I have 7 in-house producers. I have 5 doing television, I have 1 doing radio, and 1 doing co-production and external productions, you know, and film. We are supporting Danish film as well at DR. We 65 million Danish kroners every year is going to support feature films and documentaries, mostly feature films, fiction. And I have a producer who's in charge of that. You know, I read all the scripts, but she's sort of, you know, taking a lot of meetings and, you know, all kind of stuff about that. And then I have a deputy who's excellent. He's doing all the economical stuff and then we're doing the strategy together. But he's taking all the sort of all the things with the organization DR. He's taking all that, and that is amazing. He's a very important man in my life. Yeah.
In terms of the budget that this operates on, what's the license fee for a household?
It is.
It's about $400, I've read.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
$400. Yeah.
Per year.
Per year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cheap for it. You get 8 channels, really, 8 channels, and a lot of radio and, you know, all kinds of stuff. But people start complaining now because you're forced to pay. So people have it's a big discussion all over Europe where there are public broadcasters. It's a big discussion about that. But I think you get a lot of value for money, but you know, it depends. They did a very interesting thing with the BBC not long ago, because the same discussion has been in the UK. And then they cut a certain amount of people off from the BBC totally. You couldn't see any of the channels. You couldn't go online. You couldn't hear the radio. You couldn't hear anything from BBC. And after 9 days, they were screaming and shouting, "We want it back!" Because they said before, "We never use it. Why should we pay?" And they realized, oh, we use it really, because they didn't realize it really was the BBC. You know, they're just going online and it just this, that, and this, that. And suddenly they really missed it. So that was really good for us. You know?
Great.
But it's still a big discussion in Denmark. Yeah.
Just a clarification, you said 13 to 15 days. Was that 13 to 15 days per ep or per block?
Sorry?
You said 13 to 15 days.
Yeah, we're shooting 15 days per episode. It's
Per
30,
episode,
30
not per block.
yeah, 30 days for a block, you know, between 28 and 30 days.
Right.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and 10-hour days. Yeah.
Do you have just a showrunner on set all the time?
No, never. It's the producer who goes on set and report back to the writer's room. We don't have the American way where the staff writer who's doing this particular episode is sitting there. No, we don't have that. The producer has sort of the right to go in and discuss the lines and no, you have to do that, and you can change it to this and to that, because the producer will often be the one who knows what's going on in the next coming episodes, or how will this end. We did with The Killing, we did this fun thing, which was we never told them who the killer was. So the guy who played the killer, he didn't know. And Sarah Lund didn't know. You know, the other actors didn't know, and they was furious. You know, they were screaming and shouting. But we said, you know, you have to go through 20 episodes before you know. And you know, it's if you know from the start, you can't act it and say, I'm a good actor, I can do that. It's not confident towards me. This, but we said, you know, you have to think every time you interrogate someone that it might be the one, even though they go free now, they can come back in the next episode or in 10 episodes. So we're not going to tell you, and we didn't tell them, and they was, you know. And then it was very funny, because then we had a reading of episode 19 and 20, and in the final scene of episode 19, we thought that it was very obvious who was the killer now. And then I went to the actor and said, well, you're a bad guy. And he said, no, you don't know that, because I've been cheated before, you know, so I'm not sure if I trust this, you know. Oh, sorry, no, you can never trust me. You know. So he was really, he didn't believe what he was reading, because he said, oh, you faked it before, you know. So no. And then when he read the 20s, he was like, oh, it's and when the bad guy of the third season, which was an old actor, he was like 70 or something. And he asked me when we were halfway through, he asked me, is it me? I want to know. And I said, I can't tell you. Every male in this production is under suspicion. And he said, but is it, you got to tell me. He said, no, I can't tell you, but every male here is under suspicion. And then in his mind, I said, you are not, it's not you. And when we had the reading of the final episode, he really got into shock. He was furious. And he came up to me and said, you promised me. You said to me, what am I going to do? My reputation is completely ruined because he was a child molester. So he was, what can I do? It's terrible. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And you would say, well, you got to do it. No, you got to do it. And all the actors were like, oh, you're the lucky one. You're the one. You're the lucky one. And then we shot the final scenes. We shot where he's getting shot by Sarah Lund in the end, and we were doing those scenes in Stavanger in Norway, and we were sitting in the bus on the airfield, and we were going to shoot the scene, and they were preparing the lighting, and we were sitting there waiting. And then he came up to me and said, you know what I regret? I regret so much that I ever said yes to this project. And I was like, come on, man, come on, relax. And the other actress, Sophie, who was going to shoot him, was like, oh, come on, Steve, this is great. This is great for you, No, I'm never going to get a part anymore in my life, And I'm retiring, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And then, we shot the scene, and we forgot about it all, and we edited, and the series aired, and everybody just, wow, and this is really good, and whoa, and this is the man. And he got so much attention, positive attention. So he had a whole new career. So and his wife is an actress too. She's in The Legacy, and I talked to her, and she said, he's so happy. He's never gonna admit it, never. But he really got so and all the other bad guys in the series, they were like, yes, that's really good. That's me. I'm the one, So yeah. But it's good not to tell what's going to happen. And in a lot of our sort of series now, they've adapted this way of working. In Follow the Money, I'm not going to spoil it, but something is happening to someone, and nobody knows. So that's a good way, because the actors are very fresh when they do it. They don't know, And in life, you don't know what's happening tomorrow anyway. So it works. It works. Makes it fresh. Maybe part of the sort of the appeal it has, because it's very fresh. They don't know. Because sometimes, I don't know if you realize that or have experienced this, because I think actors sometimes try to act everything in every scene. The whole part and the whole story and the backstory and the coming story in the one scene. It's relax, you're only here but just say the line. But sometimes they really, but that's, but that's true. It's rude, I know, but it's really the thing, because if you're trying to sort of get it all into one line, it's going to be so intense and impossible to understand, really, because it's so mixed. So we're really trying to clean it, and that's a part of what we're really trying to do. Don't overdo it. That's important. Yeah.
Don't overdo it.
Don't overdo it.
So on that note, we're actually going to finish by watching a short teaser for Follow the Money, which is the new show that's coming. Yeah. Before we do that, I'd like to say thank you very much to Piv for her time tonight and amazing conversation. So
thank you for coming.